Right, what's happening? So this is episode 7, I think, of the Jack and the Bean Talk podcast. Today's guest is Alastair Seeley. Um, so yeah, I will dive in with a question first. Actually, a bit of a change up. So, what inspired you to get into racing, and how did you start?
Well, basically, my dad used to race. I think he done short circuits in the road racing. He's a nice scar on his elbow here. I think he smashed his elbow from a crash at Dundrod. He crashed at Wheelers. I think the bike seized. And he done short circuits, Mandela Park down south. I think he done Akadui a few times. So he was telling me back in the day he used to ride the bike from here to Mandela Park down south, race it, and then ride it home. So that was how things happened back then. But with him racing and then obviously me coming along, I was always sort of brought up around the fields with scramblers and trials bikes growing up. So I was riding around beside Prospect in the fields, but we would ride around there. There's a few fields all linked up, and we would make a couple of tracks out of them. But the police were always kind of hounding us and getting at us for disturbing the peace or whatever. So it ended up I was 14, and my dad and another friend of mine, our two dads, kind of came up with let's go motocross, competitive motocross racing. So I done schoolboy motocross from 14 to 17. So 4 years at it, and kind of got a few championships out of it basically, and was kind of well established in the schoolboy levels. But it kind of came where I needed to switch across to the adults and done a few races in the adults. But me, with always being short legged, I was always going to struggle with the rougher tracks and the bigger bikes. I was only on a 125 stroke, so would have probably needed to switch to 252 strokes and all. So 17 was kind of an age where my mates started going clubbing and pubbing and drinking and chasing women and stuff
Yeah,
around. So they were telling me about the Coach nightclub in Banbridge and how awesome it was. And they were turning up to Saturday morning motocrosses and telling us, well, we're going to the Coach tonight. So I started to sample a bit of the Coach nightlife and ended up kind of the motocross, took a back seat, it kind of basically just retired from motocross then because started to go out pubbing and clubbing, join what my mates were doing. Done that for 3 or 4 years, got it out of my system. Bit of a wild child, drinking and stuff, around Carrick, Coach, Kelly's, you name it. And then it ended up, I came back from a lad's holiday in 2001. So I was 21 years of age. And my dad says, I think we should maybe go and try short circuit. We'll buy a wee cheap 125 short circuit bike. And we went to Nuts Corner and had my first short circuit race. I think it was July 2001, and the rest is history. Really, I've been basically racing motorbikes since July. It was actually July 2000, so it was. So we're now approaching the 25th season of motorbike racing.
flip me, flip me. How did you do in your first ever race? Do you remember?
I remember thinking because obviously I'd finished with motocross, and I thought, right, I was pretty handy at the motocross. I'll jump onto the tarmac bike, and I thought it was Joe Buck. I could beat everybody, but it takes a bit of getting used to and the confidence to go into the corners and how late you can brake with sticky rubber. And I thought I was going well, but it ended up the top guys came round to lap me, and five of them must have went by me either side of me, and I just thought to myself, I have a lot to learn and a bit to go before I'm reaching them boys' pace. But just chipped away at it, and year by year got better. Put more emphasis into training. I think after about my third year, I put a good winter in of mountain biking, a lot of mountain biking. And when I went to my first race in 2004, I remember saying to myself, I feel like I could do double the race distance because must have built up my cardiovascular system so good that I didn't feel fatigued after any of the races. And I know the races over here aren't massive distance. You may be doing, I think it was maybe 8 or 10 laps over here. But then when you go to British Championship, it would be near double that. So I was probably in good enough shape for a British Championship race back then, and it held me in good stead because 2004 was the first year we had bought a new 600 Suzuki, and with being in good shape and a new bike, we hit the ground running and started to kind of show that we were there to do the business. And I think I won the Super Sport Irish Championship that year in 2004.
It's class. That's something nuts. I was only one.
Yeah, a lot of water under the bridge. So I've racing, and you look back at a career now, and every year's been pretty good. Pretty strong. I've had a couple of off seasons, as they would say. Um, just for some reason, superbikes and BSB didn't really work out for me. Whether I didn't get to stay long enough in the championships. It'd be nice to, continue to be a superbike rider, but I ended up being like superbike didn't work out so good. Dropped the super sport, had a strong year, or dropped the super stock, had a strong year, and then had to go back at superbike and wasn't really strong. So I think you need the continuity of superbike to learn to get the best out of a superbike. Whereas I was always chopping and changing, but I'd be more known as a strong 600 or a super stock 1000 rider.
Class. Class. What would you say would be harder? Short circuit or the road? Would they both have like similar difficulties, except the road's obviously not as
Forgiven.
exactly.
Yeah, no, circuits is basically, you don't think about any, as we call it, furniture road racing. You've got your walls, your houses, your lampposts, your curbs. But when you're on the racetrack, you don't really think about them when you're out there. You're pushing on. You maybe leave a little bit in reserve because you don't want to like push the front too hard and crash and slide into somethings. But on the short circuits, it's kind of, you have grass or gravel traps, so you can basically leave it all out there on the track and push over 100%. But most of the time, it's pretty calculated, and you can be a bit reserved and just make it happen when it needs to happen. But as for road racing, it's one of them. When you get to the northwest now, you are pushing on. You're up against, like, say, obviously Glenn has decided that that's no more for him, but you could probably ask him too. Davey Todd, Peter Hickman, they're all BSB riders, and you're bringing your BSB riding to the northwest, and they're taking it to the TT now, and now they're sliding out of corners and stuff, and they're pushing the envelope a bit. So it's one of them. You are pushing on and riding hard on road racing now. Short circuit, you can go even harder because you fall off most of the time. You're gonna roll, tumble, and pick a bit of gravel out of your boots, so you're out of your teeth.
Yeah, yeah, gotcha. So you said you raced the 600. What do you actually enjoy riding more, the 1000s or 600s?
Well, the two classes, 600, I've obviously a British title on 600. That was in 2011, and then 2 years previous, I have a British title in Superstock, which is the 1000cc. But the difference between Superstock and Superbike is obviously Superbike is
Tuned.
basically empty checkbook. You can do what you want. It's tuned engines, it's fancy suspension. You can change basically everything on the bike. On a super stock bike, it's supposed to be cost related, as in like keep it cost effective. You go into a showroom and you buy a bike out of the showroom. You're only supposed to be able to change the exhaust systems, the air filter, and keep it pretty like a road bike. So it's a production based class. So that class for me has always kind of worked, and now they're so sophisticated. Some of these road bikes coming out of the showroom, that they're full traction control, full electronics package of engine braking, like the BMW. I think it costs around 32 grand or something, the full spec one. So it's not cheap now doing super stock anymore. It's, super bikes is like really expensive. Super stock's not just, but it is getting expensive. Super sports had a change in the rules over the last couple of years, where they've allowed, it used to be just 600cc's. Now the Ducati's allowed in, and it's a 955cc, but it's a twin cylinder. The Triumph is a 765cc, and what else is there's the Suzuki GSXR 750cc. So the Yamaha being a 599cc or 600cc, and the Kawasaki being it's now allowed to 636cc. So this class has pretty much got like bikes that are more horsepower, but then they try and equal it all out by only allowing them a certain percentage of throttle. Like they're not allowed to do 100% throttle it has to be 71% throttle, and it's all mastered, all controlled by electronics. So if you wind it right round to the stop, it'll only say, like, this is a Ducati. It's only allowed 71 or 2%
That's
of
crazy.
throttle, because it has more CCs and more power to be able to not be too
Like balance it out. It's
balance
not
it out. Aye. So the class has got very, very strange, as in, like, there's so much different bikes with more horsepower, but they're trying to make it even and stuff. But we always find on track, because I was on the Yamaha last year, and the Yamaha used to be the bike to be on, but now you look at the speed trap figures and stuff, and it's getting left behind compared to the likes of the Ducati and the Triumph. It's the torque figures. It's not so much the horsepower figures now. It's the torque. So the Ducati has nearly 20 more Newton meters of torque than the Yamaha. So that initial torque is just, but that'll jump away from a Yamaha. So it just made life hard last year, and anybody else I was talking to with Yamahas and Kawasaki's were saying the same thing, that the class is kind of strange class now, because bikes are a wee bit more superior. So the old saying is, if you can't beat them, join them. So I think next year you'll probably hardly see a Yamaha R6 or a ZX6 Kawasaki. It'll be, everybody will want to be on the Ducati or the Triumph or the Suzuki's next year.
Flip me. What way do you think your next year is going to be?
Well, now that we're into it, and 2020, what are we, 2025?
2025.
Yeah, 2025. So hopefully, for me, I'd like to get back to the Northwest 200. I missed it last year due to not really having a team or a structure around me to give me a chance to go for wins again, because I want to try and go to the Northwest and win, because I've been so used to it. And the big teams kind of got sorted out with their riders, and there wasn't any opportunity to ride because there was no seats left. And I was asked to ride for sort of lesser teams, and no disrespect to them, but I just found that it wouldn't have given me the package to go and try and win against the big stuff. So because the big stuff was gone and not available, I thought, instead of going up and kind of making up the numbers, I'll just take a year out, and hopefully things materialize for this year. So this year's looking like there might be something happening in the background at the minute. I can't really say too much on it, but there's something might be working, and I had a phone call last night about another class that might be covered. So it's in the middle of almost there, just trying to get across the finish line to be able to say, right, we're going back to the Northwest. The biggest thing for me is I want to have time spent on the bikes before I go, because there's no point saying, yes, we'll do this, and then just rock up to the Northwest and not have any time on it, because you need to know your motorbikes.
Need to have trust in it.
The secret of the ingredient, probably with my Northwest or anybody that has been successful, is the BSB guys do a lot of testing. They go to Spain for pre-season, most of March, and then April will be BSB official tests. So they'll get to do maybe 2 or 3 official tests. So you're talking probably the guts of at least 8, maybe more days on a motorbike before you actually go to the first round. And then obviously you have all your mileage of free practice 1 and 2, qualifying, and 2 races at the BSB first round. So when you get to the Northwest, which is very early in the season, you're already up to speed. You know your motorbike, and you've done a lot of laps, and they've done racing. So you come to the Northwest on whatever motorbike you've been riding, and it's very comfortable. You jump onto it and you're like, oh, this feels like mine. I know what it's going to do. So that would be something that I want kind of wrote into this year. If I do go to the Northwest, I need to have time on the bikes. You can't just expect me to jump onto something that I haven't rode and expect me to win on it. So that's just kind of the things that are in the middle of happening at the minute, to be able to get me out on them, whether it be Spain or testing in England. But the problem is we're still in the middle of winter in the UK. To get decent weather, you have to go abroad, and then to go abroad, it gets expensive. So it's all down to budget, and if we can find enough money to get us there.
Flipping mental, like, what would you say is the hardest bit about actually getting abroad? Would you say it's getting the bike brought over, would you say, like, do you need a team with the bike whenever you go abroad to test?
Yeah, it's one of them. Whenever you do your deals, well, for me anyway, as the rider, you just have to worry about what the rider needs to do. So the likes of TAS Racing, who I've been successful with a lot, they're such a big team, big professional British Superbike team, that the rider just concentrates on what they need to do. So they train and get themselves prepared. Get them actually don't even get them. So the team then look after the mechanics, the rider, get the lorries loaded up, get the lorries onto the boats. The boats will drive down the boats will get the Spain, then they drive down to the track. So then the riders booked onto the flights with the mechanics, and they'll fly from here to closest airport to the track. Then basically hire cars. So the rider just kind of is along for the ride.
Yeah.
So we all end up at the hotel. You're booked in for hotels for whatever 4 nights, and then you do your 4 track days in Spain, and then the guys will put the bikes in the lorries, or sometimes they crate them up. You put them on a crate, and the crate will be put into a lorry.
Yeah.
And everybody puts their crates into the lorry. The lorry will go. So then everybody just has to then get themselves to the track, and the bikes all end up. The lorry takes all the bikes there, or the teams will do it themselves and just load their own bikes in, and the lorry will arrive at the track. But it's one of them. The rider just jumps on a plane, goes with the mechanics, hotel, track days, fly home, and that's it, all covered. So not the rider doesn't really have to worry too much about all.
Would you say testing in the likes of Spain is fairly different to like testing over here? Because as you said, the weather's completely different. Like, would you say it's harder to ride out there because it would be warmer? As in, like, I know you're going quick, but do you get really warm riding around on the bike?
No, not too bad. It's usually at that time of the year, March is just nice and comfortable. It's probably, I would say, get 20, 21, some days maybe 22, maybe not even that. You might get 17, 18, 19, which is obviously just like a good summer's day over here.
Yeah.
It's obviously a lot nicer to wake up in the morning. Can be chilly. March is usually the month that testing happens. So in Spain, March in the morning can still be chilly, and I have seen frost on the windscreens of the cars when we go. But sometimes the rule, it's kind of like not a written rule, but you'll wait to track day starts at 9, but everybody waits to 10 o'clock for the sun to give the chance to heat the tarmac up. And then once people have them like laser gun things, you
Yep.
point them at the tarmac, and it's like,
See how warm it is.
it's showing you like 35, 40 degrees track temperature, and you'll be like, oh, that's well dead on to go and ride the bike on. So it's usually 10 o'clock, everything kicks off, people start riding, and then it's just really blow cobwebs off after a long winter. Usually the last meeting for some people will be the Sunflower at Bishop's Court here. And for the ones who don't do the Sunflower, it'll be Brands Hatch, which is usually the last round in middle of October. So it usually goes last round Brands Hatch, and then the week after is Sunflower. I haven't done the Sunflower for a few years now, so you're talking third week in October until March is basically not riding a race bike. You can do your trials in the winter, you can do your motocross in the winter, but as for actually racing a race bike, nothing happens for 4 or 5 months there. So it's nice to get to Spain because the UK stuff is just too cold.
Yeah.
You run the risk of, that you shine the gun, the laser gun on the ground over here, you'll see 6 degrees, 8 degrees, and you're like, there's a chance these tires are going to cool down, and then when tires cool down, they're not sticky, you crash. And the main thing is you don't want to have crashes due to something silly like it's not warm enough, or it's too cold to be racing. So everybody takes a chance to get to Spain, sun on your back, and the tracks are warm, and you try the UK stuff, it can be wet, it can be miserable, but you take the chance of going to Spain, have your shakedown, do your 4 days there, get everything set up nice and comfortable on your bike, and then you can come back to the UK stuff.
Yeah.
And usually that's around the end of March, where you're kind of hoping that it starts to turn a wee bit over here. You start to get a bit brighter days, a bit warmer days, but you just take a chance. Could be still wet, And the thing with racing in the UK and even the Northwest, I've seen days at the Northwest is like pure winter.
Yeah.
Cold, wet, raining. And if it is like that, then there's no point doing all your stuff in the dry when you have to be able to ride them in the wet. So
Yeah.
you just have to get on with it.
Let me see the way you're saying there about there is a gap between October and then March for riding the bike. Do you go on the bike still as confident as you once were in October? So like say whenever it's March, do you get on the bike still confident in the bike? Or
I,
do you still have like do you get nervous to go on the bike because you haven't rode it within that wee gap?
I think it's excited is the word you're looking for, because obviously you haven't rode it for so long. But most of the time when it does come March to get testing again, you're probably with a different team or you're going to be on a different motorbike. So the excitement comes from meeting maybe new team members, team boss, and a new motorbike. I haven't really had the continuity of rolling over from October to then riding the same bike in March again. It's always been something different. But you don't feel as confident because that whole 4 or 5 months of not riding, you don't realise how rusty you are.
Yeah.
And the whole brain processing things at a certain speed isn't there. You know, you're braking earlier than what you should be. You're not braking as hard as what you should be because you have kind of lost the feel of what you can do. And the training during that time we're riding motocross bikes and trials bikes, it just doesn't give you what you need to be doing.
Well, I suppose like you're riding at over 100 miles an hour. If you're doing that on a motocross bike, you're going mad.
You need to be taking up motocross then.
That's exactly it. But no, flipping, that's nuts. Like that's nuts. So I'm gonna ask another question. Is who has been your biggest inspiration on the motorbike scene?
I think my dad is obviously a big inspiration. He done a bit of racing himself, but obviously got me into it.
Yeah.
And we always had motorbikes for the fields and stuff. So he was obviously, pushing me to go that direction. And then whenever I stepped away from it, for him to then say to me, "Do you want to go and try short circuit?" He obviously seen something maybe in the motocross days that I probably preferred, like Barley Stubbles, but as you mentioned earlier, Bushmills club have them big fast Barleys.
Mm-hmm.
And when we were going up to around sort of Letterkenny, Donegal, the Barley Stubble racing up there were always very open and very fast. And I seem to be more into the fast stuff. So whether he's seen like maybe I like the faster stuff and let's try short circuit racing. But obviously him getting me into it in the first place, and then obviously it starts off as a dad and lad thing when you go. So he was my mechanic, doing this bits and bobs with the bike and making sure I was eating and drinking and stuff, and then it moves on to the dad will take you so far, and then you start needing to join the teams.
Yeah.
And when you get into the teams, the dad needs to sort of take a step back and let you go to the teams and do your thing. So yeah, he's always been there, and he's always been he's been criticizing me whenever things aren't going right or I haven't been pulling my weight with results. So he'll obviously give me a kick up the arse when I need it. But it's funny, whenever I get decent results, he'd be the first one on the phone. And if the results aren't that good, I don't get a phone call. So I know if I get a phone call, I'm doing well.
Would you say, like, what would be your favourite track to ride at?
Obviously, the Northwest. It's the only road race I do, but because we've been so successful, I really, really enjoy it. For short circuit, I have Donington. This is BSB. I have Donington, Brands Hatch, and Snetterton. Those three in BSB, I like. They're pretty fast. There's not so much. The stop starty chicane is funny because the Northwest is obviously big long straights and then chicane, then big long straight chicane. But the chicanes for me would probably be like my Achilles heel, because I haven't got long levers.
Yeah.
And guys with long levers seem to be able to change direction on the bike a lot faster. So when we go to short circuits like Cadwell Park, and it has the quick direction changes, Knockhill's quite Nadgery as well. When we go to the faster flowing stuff like Assen, Assen, for a prime example, is very fast and flowing. I know it's not in the BS. It used to be in the BSB calendar, and it stopped there for a couple of years. I think it's back again. But Assen for me was one of my favorites because it flows. Everything flows, and you're not stop start having to wrestle the bike quickly side to side. It's all big flowing stuff, and it suits me better. And I like when I done a bit in America in 2006, and then I went back out and done in 2008. I got invited back out again to a place called Road America, which is in Wisconsin, and it's a track. It's a short circuit track, but it's 4 mile for a lap, and it has three flat out straights on it. So I really really enjoyed that because of the speed thing, but the track itself was like big long start finish straight, 90 degree down another big long straight top gear, left right, down a hill left, and then a big carousel, which is like they call the carousel in America a corner that goes on and on and on and on, and it just keeps going on, and then left and down another big straight, right left and finish. So that's 4 mile for a lap, but it's really really fast, and I really really enjoyed that place. And it was the track that I got invited out to in 2008 again, and I finished fourth in the race, so I just got pushed off the podium in the last couple of laps. But those are my favourite tracks, the sort of fast flowing stuff.
See, whenever you're at the high speeds, do you get like a wee adrenaline burst? Like, do you get all, I don't know, buzzing with it because you're at that fast speed? Like, see, if I was sitting at that speed, I'd be like,
Northwest is quite an eye opener because there's only really two places that I've rode in my life where you're at in top gear for such a long time, flat out. And Daytona 200, you know, the Daytona 500s, the NASCARs goes round.
Yeah.
So the bank and then the straight and then the bank. Well, I done in 2006 when I done a stint in America. I raced Daytona 200, and again it's going round the banking like for so long, flat out. So the slipstreaming effect, you know, that where like you can come from here, and it catches and then slipstream by. So you have that, which is very important at Daytona, because races can be won or lost. With slipstream, it's like you don't want to lead on the last lap because you know people are just gonna slipstream you to the finish line. So you kind of need to have such a switched on racing brain with that place to be. It would be like if the Northwest finished at the end of a long straight and the finish line was at the end of the long straight, you'd have to position yourself in the right place to get a slipstream to get finished.
Yeah.
But the finish line isn't on a straight. The Northwest, you have the coast road, and then you have the juniper chicanes where the caravans are, and then it's up the hill into the thing. So all the straights dotted around the place, you can kind of hold back a bit, as in like, I don't really need to lead here, or right, I'm falling back too far, I need to start making progress again. So you can use the slipstream to start getting yourself in the right place.
Would you say the straights are the best part to actually make your moves in? Like, just, right, that's where I need to be, or that's where I need to be? Has there ever been like a moment where you've went, do I take over here? Like, say you're turning a corner. Is there any moment you're like, right, if I need to win this, I need to get past them?
Yeah. It's funny because when I started to get more towards the end with like me and Glenn battling, he would have knew that he didn't really want to be leading coming over Black Hill, which is the one that leads past Tides restaurant, because that's the last sort of blast to that Juniper chicane where the caravan side is, and it's usually the golden rule is that whoever leads into that chicane is going to lead out of it, and then very rarely is there a pass made up into the last corner. So it's one of those ones you don't want to be leading coming out of Black Hill because you know you're going to get slipstreamed into that chicane. But over the years I've made passes into that chicane, so even if you did get slipstream you could still outbrake.
Yeah.
But with Glenn doing BSB and stuff, he was very, very, very good in the brakes. So to outbrake him, you'd probably like end up outdoing yourself and going straight on up the road. So you had to start thinking of other areas where you needed to be stronger, or maybe even make a break to get away from everybody. Because usually at the Northwest, if you can make a gap of 3 seconds or 4 seconds, they're not close enough to get in the slipstream. So you can kind of then start doing your own things. And I've like won races at the Northwest by like 22.5 seconds and stuff, just by, right, get away, get a lead, and then let them ones behind all slipstream each other and trip each other up,
Yeah.
and allows you to get away from them. So you got kind of need to be thinking all the time about strategies, and the wind's a big thing up there.
Yeah.
What way the wind's blowing, you can have a tailwind blowing on your back, pushing you, which then you need to make sure the gearing on the bike's right, because if it tops out and you're on the limiter in top gear, you're not going any faster. Where somebody might have a different gearing on and still has revs left.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to blow past you and then just keep going, and you're sitting on the limiter, all because the wind has changed and started blowing on your back. And maybe at the start of the day it was on your face, and then you think, oh, the wind's changed here, we need to change the gearing. So there's a lot of things going on up there.
Who would you say on the Northwest 200? Who has been the most challenging rider?
Probably Glenn coming along, because obviously the both of us from Carrick. I was the more or less the king who got the crown and had the most wins and stuff, and then Glenn coming from BSB in had started the more so the superbike races. I think he did have a go at the beginning. It was on the 600s, and we had some good races. There was a race, me and him and Lee Johnson, in the Juniper Hill chicane, and it all came down to who could break latest out of the three of us into that chicane. So I was kind of in the middle. I think Glenn was on the inside, and Lee Johnson tried to do the outside. But you kind of need to suss out in practice where you can break at the latest. Otherwise, you'll go straight on up the wee slip road bit where you have to stop and then negotiate bails and then go again. So I kind of worked out where I could break, and the three of us were kind of like all side by side. And then it got to the point where like nobody would break, and it was going, who's going to break? And I was like, right, that's me, that's my limit.
Yeah.
And them two were like, went further.
Yeah.
But then they were like, oh, I can't make the corner, I can't make the corner. And then they went, Lee basically went straight on. I think Glenn tried to make the corner, but didn't get turned in. And then because I had braked a bit earlier, I just nipped in.
Yeah.
And them two went up the slip road, so they have to stop, put their foot down, and then go. So that was like one of them ones where I knew where my max was.
Yeah.
And if I went beyond that, I wasn't getting stopped. So that. But then, you know, Glenn's that cute where he learned from that then.
Yeah.
And then he needed to start doing things like that. So the big superbike is about like what I was saying earlier about continuity. Glenn has been a superbike rider for quite a number of years. So that when he comes to the Northwest, the superbike is his machine. With me, I was probably doing super stock or super sport. So when I jumped on the superbike, I probably wasn't just as comfortable. But we had some good races, and he ended up now, he's the most winningest superbike rider and has the record for the most superbike wins. So to beat him, you know, like said, Davy Todd took it to him last year, but didn't get on top of him. And then the year before was me and Glenn and Dean Harrison and Michael Dunlop all sitting in a gaggle, but it was one of them ones that was all down to a red flag and the result was declared. So we've had some good ding dongs, but he always seemed to get the better of me towards the end. Or towards the end of my superbike gig. So he concentrated on superbike to be getting the superbike, which is basically they call it the blue ribbon.
Yeah.
You know, like the main race is the last race of the day, and that's the one that everybody wants to win. So Glenn just doing superbike races was also a bit fresher. I had been doing 600 stalkers superbike races, so there's a wee bit element of that, of fatiguing a wee bit because I've done so many races. The mental tax that it has in your brain for a day doing 6 races over a week, and you end up doing 4 races on the day in comparison to like Glenn doing 2. So it's not bringing out the excuse book or anything. It's just more miles, more taxing on the brain, more fatigue. But Glenn, fair play to him, he was the one that come along and I was like, he's trying to more or less become the new king of the Northwest. And you ask him yourself, the atmosphere at that place is unreal. When you win races and you hear the whole grandstand.
I was actually there that year, but whenever you and Glenn were tit for tat the whole way, we were in a field, I think it was just after Tide's restaurant.
Yeah.
We were in a field just watching, and it was just you two. Whoa. I was like, what? But my stepdad was like, they're from Carrick. I was like, Wait, there's motorbike racers from Carrick. Like,
Yeah.
see, back then I didn't even realise.
I think it was 2017, might have been 2018, but the year where I had like a moment, we were heading out from Port Stewart, out that fast straight, and I went to pull alongside Glenn, and the wind had picked up sort of towards the end of the day, and as I went to go around outside him, the wind sort of dragged me to the edge of the track, and I went along between the like grass verge and the white line, and there are a couple of puddles there, and I was basically in the puddles, and I had basically a moment. So Glenn had shot on, and then Ian Hutchison was my teammate that year. He had jumped up in the second. So after I kind of had the moment and come back out on the track, I was like, this was the last lap I happened. So I was like determined not to let him go. I wanted to try and get back because it was the last race of the day, the last lap, and me and him was jockeying for the win. So for me to get back on terms and actually pass him on the last lap again at, you know, the bit where they come down in the Port Rush down the hill and it's a hairpin?
Yeah.
Metropole?
Yeah.
And then they go into that right-hander that has sort of artificial curbs on the inside, Church Corner, where Lee Johnson had crashed. So I made the pass into there. So after having such a moment, nearly going into the grass verge at the start of the lap, to making that pass after falling back and getting going again, I think that was something that kind of was never really talked about or given much credit for, to be able to come back and get after him after that moment. But then that wee trick of the run from Black Hill, slipstream, he got me again on the Ducati to past tides basically. The pass was put in probably just about tides, and it's not actually a straight road. That if you look at it, it kind of curves to the left, and then when you get to tides, it goes right. So you can kind of shut somebody off by going to the curb and not letting them by. So I had a big head shake and all with the bumps on the road at that time, but that was the big sort of defining moment of Glenn has arrived and is now starting to dominate these superbike races, and he was the new kid on the block in the superbike races.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever actually watch back on races you've been in?
Used to study them a lot. I think I'll get back to that because it was probably beneficial for all the years I've done the Northwest now. I think it was 2004 would have been my first Northwest. So there's a lot of footage and coverage to look back over. 2006 was the first year where I kind of came into, what would you say, my name in lights, Alastair Seeley, Northwest 200. I finished fourth in the second 600 race in 2006, and I passed John McGuinness on the last lap. So with that pass, then I started to get emails or phone calls from the Isle of Man TT. It was like, oh, do you fancy coming to Isle of Man? We'll look after you, we'll put you up, we'll help you to learn the circuit. And I basically never wanted to do the Isle of Man. I said it in my sort of sites that I didn't want to go to the Isle of Man and do it. So I had to just send a nice reply back and say thanks for the offer, but no thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And I've never been to Isle of Man. Glenn's had a bash at the Isle of Man. I think he done it 1 year.
I think he was one of the fastest newcomers.
Yeah.
I'm almost sure I heard.
He's ticked a lot of boxes, you know, Glenn. He's went to Mackay, won at Mackay, set the fastest ever newcomer lap at the TT. Went to the Ulster Grand Prix, I think. I don't know if he won the race or he's definitely on the podium. So ticked a lot of boxes, you know. And then this year he's announced that the road racing's no more for him. So young family too, you know, and short circuits is safer. So with coming close to British Superbike Championship there 2 years ago by half a point, I think it's on his agenda now to try and win that Superbike Championship and tick another box.
Yeah. What about your box ticking? But do you think you've ticked a good lot of your boxes on the motorbike scene?
I think where we're at the minute, we've done pretty well. You know, 2 British Championships, and looking back, it could easily have been 5 British Championships. I was runner-up in Supersport for 2 years, and I was runner-up in Superstock for a year. So, you know, it's ifs and buts too. You know, it just didn't work out at the very end. It was close. I took my championships, the 2 Supersport, 2013 and 2014. I took it right to the last race of the last round, and just missed out in those 2 years. So it could easily be sitting here with 2009 Superstock champion, 2011 Supersport champion, 2013 and 14 Supersport champion, And then in 2015, I took it to the penultimate round in Superstock. So it could easily have been 5 British Championships, which would have been nice to say. And on top of that, the bonus of having the most wins at the Northwest on 29 now. But with things materialising hopefully very, very soon for 2025 to get back at the Northwest, we're sitting on 29 wins, and I'd like to round it up to 30 and, if possible, try and stretch it a wee bit more.
That's cool.
So now it's just pretty much, we're in the new year of 2025 now. Flick the switch for the training mode, tidy up the diet, start the training, shave the beard off, and just get focused on a new year ahead and get myself in shape and let the team or teams hopefully get the bikes prepared to the best that they can be, and we can have a good Northwest 200.
How is it you actually get, like, how do you train your brains and train your body to be able to go on to the likes of a super bike, super stock bike, and any road bike really, any track bike? Like, how do you train your mind to know that you are going at stupid speeds in competition with each other?
I think it's just repetitive laps and gets you comfortable. When we do that pre-season testing in March, everything's rusty and it's nearly happening too fast for the brain to work it out. But it soon gets back up to speed because, like the muscle memory thing.
Yeah.
The brain starts to realise, oh, you can brake later than this, you can squeeze the brake harder, you can carry more speed through that corner. You kind of missing all your apexes at the start, and then everything starts to click. But it's more just like the more time on the bike, the better, and you get used to it and comfortable. But the secret at the minute seems to be, and I think it's down to like some of the riders will maybe have more budget or able to do the whole during the December, January, February phase.
Yeah.
They'll base themselves in Spain. So they'll have the warmer weather to go training, whether it be motocrossing or running or cycling. You wake up here in a UK morning, like this morning, and it's probably -1, -2.
Struggling to flip and walk on the path.
To go and get your running gear on and go running around the roads is a bit sketchy. You go out on a bicycle, you get hit black ice and fall off, break collarbone. The ones who are going to Spain have more chance of having nice sunny weather, dry roads, and they also take their toys with them, as in pit bikes, bicycles, motocross bikes, and maybe even have a race bike.
Yeah.
So a lot of the top guys now have a practice bike, which will be probably super stock form. Super bike riders probably won't or aren't allowed to take their full blown super bikes out, so they'll take a super stock version. But again, it's seat time.
Yeah.
It's time on a bike. It's time on a track. And if they go from October to March without missing any not riding the bike time, then they're going to be, the brain never really actually gets rusty.
Yeah.
It just keeps riding. And then when they come to that first bit of testing and the first official tests, even the first round, they are just as how they finished off in October, but it doesn't happen to everybody.
Yeah.
It only seems to be the ones who maybe have a bit more financial budget there, more money, are able to do that. Obviously don't have to work, because that is also an equation of like, how do you juggle having to work with training and racing? And
because you wouldn't be able to travel, you wouldn't be able to do anything if you have a job. It sort of makes it hard. Sometimes
I say it's a bit crude, but silver spoon, the kids are silver spoon.
Yep.
They're given to them. But I find that they maybe don't have the want as somebody who has to work harder for it.
It's all about the grit and the teeth, really.
Yeah.
Who wants it more?
Yeah.
And someone that's just been handed will never really have that want as much as someone which has dug deep for everything they wanted.
Yeah.
Another thing I wanted to ask you, where'd you get the nickname Wee Wizard?
It's funny, I come from a sponsor of mine, probably one of my very first sponsors, a guy called Billy Watt. And he was my dad's friend, buys and sells cars. And they were down at Mandela, followed me all around, obviously, in the Irish scene. So Kirkeston, Acadouis, Bishop's Courts, Mandela Parks. but he always had a motorhome, and he used to climb up on the ladder on top of the roof of the motorhome. And he would say to his missus, or if my dad was over watching with him, he'd say, "Here comes a wee wizard now." So the wee wizard kind of stuck, and then I got my logo done as the wee wizard with a potion bottle, and then it's been there from, it's a bit like my number. A lot of riders are associated with their number,
Yeah.
and their logos. So my number 34 only happened when I went to BSB. So I was not like to run number 9 at home.
Yeah.
But then when I went to BSB, I was like, "Can I have number 9?" And they were like, "No, kind of top 10 seeded in the championship from the previous year. So we have available, I think it was 33, 34, or 35." And I says, "Give me 34." But there was no real intention of why I chose it. I just says, "Give me 34."
Yeah.
So then when I joined TAS Suzuki, or Relentless Suzuki, the whole connection with Suzuki and 34, and Kevin Schwantz would have been one of my heroes, and he was 34 on the Suzuki, the Pepsi Suzuki, and then what was the other? I think it was a cigarette company, Lucky Strike Suzuki. So that whole Kevin Schwantz 34 Suzuki, and then I come along on the Suzuki 34 Alastair Seeley wee wizard. It worked out well.
It did. It did. It's stuck.
Stuck in, and
Stuck.
keep the number, hopefully.
Another thing I wanted to ask, what's the day in the life of Alastair Seeley look like outside of racing?
Pretty probably chilled and relaxed, to be honest. With me, family man now, I have a son, Lewis, 18. He's pretty much up and doing what he wants now. But I've also a little girl, Olivia, who's 7. So you got to do your daddy duties. Paying mortgages, and then obviously I'm a postman day to day. So working out at Carrick branch, you'll see me pounding the streets close to the depot. So Sunnylands, Woodburn, down round the marina, out to Belfast Road. I know about half a dozen routes around Carrick now. So postman Pat during the year, when the motorbike season kicks off and the training ramps up, I usually drop my hours down a bit to be able to train hard and also walk the streets, which I kind of try and balance it so I'm not getting burnt out. So yeah, it's good. It's good that Royal Mail are able to do that with me. You know, not a lot of jobs, if you went in and said, "Is it possible that I can do 2 days or 3 days a week?" and they expect you to
They'd
do
usually
5.
just be like, "You're laid off. See you later."
Yeah, so I'm lucky enough that the Royal Mail will do that for me. So anything outside that's really, it's going to be looking at training, you know, this time of the year. And usually you're wrecked by the end of it, so it'll be pretty much that eat, sleep, train, repeat type stuff.
Yep.
I'll go to work and then come home, get dinner, go training, and then during the season it'll be pretty much, I took up golf about 2 years ago, I think it is now, and you'd see me on a golf course, but it's kind of more just like chilling out. I'd be running about at the golf course where we have a wee 4-ball that we've been to Spain a couple of times. So there's me, there's Jeremy McWilliams, there's David Allingham, who races Superstock Championship, and then there's John Rainey, who would have been very friendly with Ryan Farquhar and helped him with his bikes during the year. Helped Jeremy as well. So he was a good golfer, still is a good golfer. He wouldn't tell you very much. He used to have a handicap of 8, so that's why he's good at giving us lickings all the time. So yeah, Jeremy's steady and David's steady. David's actually won the last couple of outings, so he's got a target in his back now. But yeah, no, it's good. It's good because it's a 4-hour game of golf, 18 holes. The crack and the banter's good. We always slagging each other and stuff if somebody has a bad shot or can't get a putt and stuff like that. So play golf, go training, go out on the road bicycle, do a bit of mountain biking. Not much else really. Just make sure the house is well tidied up. Like to do all the chores, get the bins emptied and brush the driveway and wash the van, wash the car.
Keep yourself busy.
Keep myself busy. Yeah, I don't really like to sit. Only sit in if there's something on telly. Like I'm a big Arsenal supporter, so the match is on tonight at 5:30.
I'll not take my jumper off then.
You Liverpool.
I have a Liverpool on, yeah.
It's funny, John Rainey, he's Liverpool as well, so we always wind each other up when the Arsenal Liverpool game's on. It's funny when we were in Spain there, middle of October, Liverpool played Arsenal, and I had it on my phone at the table having a beer, and it was, I think we were up. Was it 3-2 we were up, or maybe 2-1 we were up, and then you came back 2-2, and it ended up a draw. But we nearly should have nicked another goal towards the end of it. So we were always bantering to and from. So he's a big Liverpool supporter, but user flan at the minute.
See, to be honest, I very rarely watch football. I just see the results after
Yeah.
and just go, yep.
No, I
I
can't.
just sort of. My mate had loads of Liverpool tops. It's like, have one. And see, ever since, is just say I support Liverpool and just watch scores. That's all I see.
No, Liverpool is a big following in Carrick. I think is that the Royal Oak as a supporters club maybe out there, and you'd see a lot of Liverpool, Man United supporters in the cricket club up in Carrick as well. So not too many Arsenal supporters, I don't think, but
I know a good few actually.
Oh, yeah.
I know a good few surprisingly, and then I think there's a lot of Chelsea supporters as well.
Right.
There's a lot of Chelsea people in Carrick as well.
Gives me something outside of motorbike racing, I suppose, to follow. Used to go to the Emirates Stadium, more so when Lewis was young. I think we went around 2012, maybe went back 13, 14. I think I've been to the Emirates Stadium about 3, maybe 4 times and watched. They either won or they drew, so I haven't seen a loss at the Emirates. But for us being from here to travel to London to go into that big stadium of 60,000, I think it holds, and the whole atmosphere being amongst the Arsenal supporters and singing all the, you have no voice left by the end of the match because you're just chanting singing all the songs with them. But it's an experience because it was me and Danny, my fiance, and then Lewis at the time, and Livia didn't come along to 2017. Sorry, 2017. Sorry, that was the missus looking for me.
Probably because we spoke for about an hour before. But no, we'll quickly finish up here anyway. My last thing I wanted to say was, before we actually get into the jelly beans, game for the jelly beans, yeah.
Oh, aye. Yes. Game for anything.
Yes. Is say there was a kid starting out on the motorbike scene, and you had to give him one piece of advice. What would it be?
Let me see. So, obviously, getting loose into the pit biking and stuff. It's an expensive game, so it is, but there is ways of kind of making it less expensive. You know, you can go to town and have all the bits and bobs, and we actually touched on it earlier with the motocross rider thing. If you learn to ride something that hasn't got the potential or maybe hasn't got the speed, learn to get the best out of that. Then if you ever do get the opportunity with better spec or faster machinery, because you've learned to ride your maybe slower or not so good stuff to the best of its potential, then whenever you get the good stuff, all of a sudden you just take a massive jump with performance or your results.
Yeah.
For me, that was I came down that route where my dad, he didn't take my engines out and go and send them to be tuned. He did buy me good bikes, as in like a new bike, but it was basically left, like at the very beginning, we didn't change the rear shock to a race shock. We left it as a road bike shock, which can get very soft when it heats up, and the forks was just left as a road bike as you buy a road bike. But I probably got away with that because with it being so soft as a road bike, it suits me because I'm a light rider. So we didn't even have race suspension in it. It was just basically a road bike with road bike suspension, put an exhaust and an air filter on it and left the engine. So then whenever I was racing the guys who maybe had the faster stuff, I had to learn to make up my time through braking later.
Yeah.
And trying to, what they would get away from me with acceleration of faster engine, I could make up on the brakes. So then when I was making it up on the brakes and then I did get my faster engine, I could do the catching on the brakes, but then also pull away through acceleration. So then I was like, I was making up the time,
Making time plus more.
Yeah. So that's kind of get the best out of your package that you have, and then eventually if you get the good stuff, you'll be
sort of like me whenever I race the pit bikes. I raced the pit bikes on the Barley Stubble. The first bike I ever had was a wee 110, which was literally all built from spare parts in the shed, really.
Yeah.
Thing just about ran at the start. Then we got it running. Went to my first race. The first year, all I got was participation trophies. The next year, I got given one chance to race someone else's bike. Went out, got a third. Then I got given the package, really.
Yeah.
And then I started pulling in third, seconds, firsts every single time.
Once you got the better stuff.
Because I learned from, not rubbish, but learned from the less fortunate stuff.
Yeah.
I was able to put that into the faster bike, plus do, as you said, do everything I done on the less fortunate bike and more.
Nearly, it makes it a wee bit easier then, and
Exactly.
you're absolutely creaming it on the lesser stuff, and then you get the slightly more better stuff, and it becomes easier because you're not trying as hard. No, it's definitely it's a good wee thing to follow. Is just try and get the best out of your package that you have, and then hopefully when you get the better stuff, you'll be away and improve massively.
Yeah. Well, we'll
do the sweets thing, because don't you be high siding off that chair.
Nearly outside. Maybe get a clip of me there. I'll bring us over because
you need your crash helmet on.
over there. Right, what colour would you want to go for first?
Probably the one that looks most. It would be the red one. Don't know what. Just pick
Chili
one
or
out
cherry?
there. Yeah.
Right, we'll go for that. Flip yours straight in. I got chili. That's on my teeth.
She's a bit spicy.
If you think that one's spicy, wait till you try the green one.
We'll skip green. Do I have to go around all these?
Yeah.
I'm about some firework that water go. I thought Vindaloo was hot.
Right, what way do you want to go? Do you want to go orange or do you want to go green?
Whack 'em all in.
All at once? Dangerous that's a ball.
We'll go yellow.
Yellow?
Is this like a see who can hold it in their mouth the longest?
It can be, but
what flavour is that?
I got lemon. Lemon or sour milk.
That's alright. A yellow one's alright.
I didn't mind the yellow one. My mouth's still burning a bit from the chili one, but
so we're done red, we're done yellow.
I don't like the brown one. It's the worst one, like, for me.
Orange.
Pretty fruity or rotten fish.
So these are either or, are they?
Yeah.
So you're picking
so
out
you could,
a good one or
like,
a bad
I
one?
could have a good one, you could have a bad one.
Yeah.
Or vice versa, or we could both have bad ones. Nah, it's grim.
Right, we've green, blue, and brown. We've green, brown, and blue left, haven't we? So it's either going to be the brown one will either be a cola or a what?
Garbage.
The blue one will either be a
Bubble gum or blue cheese.
blue cheese would be pure rotten, and green would be apple or
Wasabi.
what's wasabi? It's like is a Japanese like
What I think it is, I could be completely wrong, because I thought it was like spicy avocado, but I don't think it's that.
what's the word I'm looking for? So the Japanese fish food, what do you call that?
Sushi.
Sushi.
You can put wasabi on sushi,
Can you?
but I don't actually know what it is.
Right, so a blue, green, or brown. Go brown. Cola. Give me a
Really
cola
favorite
ball.
one. I got cola.
That's rotten. I'm gonna have to mix them up a bit, aren't I? I can't I just have to get stuck into these because she'll be yapping. That's the missus I'm talking about. Yes, I got apple.
That's the spiciest one.
So you got cola there, and I got the bad one, and I got apple there, and you got the bad one. We're down to the last one.
Blue cheese or bubble gum.
Oh,
I hope we get bubble gum.
I can't finish on blue cheese.
Oh, wasabi stinking.
Please don't be blue cheese. I'll tell you a wee story about blue cheese. So when I went to America in 2006, we went to a restaurant and I ordered steak. And with the steak, I usually get peppercorn sauce or Diane sauce or
Yeah.
gravy or something like that. So I had asked for blue cheese sauce, thinking it was going to be, because I didn't really know at that time what blue cheese was.
Yeah.
Because blue cheese is like an off cheese, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I says, give me blue cheese with that steak, please. So it came out and the blue cheese was poured all over the steak. But of course, when I cut the steak and put it in my mouth, I was like, oh, this rotten. What I should have done was have a gravy boat of blue cheese, so as I could have like poured a wee bit on, tasted it, but it was all over the steak, and I couldn't eat it. The blue cheese was absolutely rank. So basically, my dinner was ruined. So anything to do with blue cheese, I've been put off. So this could be blue cheese, cheese or bubblegum.
Where was I? I was over in Spain, and we got dinner, but it wasn't blue cheese. It was just something. Don't even know what it was. It was some fish plate. I bit into it, thought it was stinking, but my mate turned around and was like, it's rude to leave the food there.
Right.
So I sat and forced myself to eat it because I thought it was rude.
Yeah.
He turned around and was like, nah, I didn't even want mine. I was like, are you actually serious? Raging. Got bubblegum.
Bubblegum. Yes, we finished off nicely there.
Thank goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Thank goodness.
Right, thanks very much.
No problem.